Hey guys, welcome to my review of Gray Zone Warfare. I was lucky enough to receive a key from none other than Rick from Madfinger Marketing Team. He's just awesome. He reached out to me a few days ago, sent me a key, and said enjoy. I couldn't wait when I opened that message on Twitter. I was able to put in about 30 hours into the game, maybe a little bit more. And I just want to give you some of my thoughts, both good and bad, and they're as honest as I could possibly get. I'm going to have some gameplay playing in the background so that, you're not just looking at my face. You can just listen to me, watch, and listen to the thoughts I had on the game. The gameplay is going to be from a mission that I did in Blue Lagoon, which is one of the small outposts near Mithras Security, which is one of the factions I started. So Gray Zone starts you off as a merc, basically a nobody, just like every other extraction shooter kind of in that regard. You start at level 1 and you work your way up. Part of one of the 3 factions is what you get to join. Lemang Recovery Initiative, Mithras Security Solutions, who I chose, and Crimson Shield, right? Each one of them has an awesome little backstory that you get to pick very beginning of the game. And more importantly, a completely different starting location on the map, depending on who you choose. Each starting spot does have its own beginning town that I don't want to say copy and paste, but they're very similar. They have very similar AI and stuff. I chose Mithras and I started at the very bottom of the map. There's a basic starting town, like I said, and I would say these are the easier AI with the quote unquote worst weapons as loot. There's several missions in the early town that basically let you learn the game, using trackers, finding items and stuff, kind of learning how to use your map with coordinates and such. PvE is the center of this game. PvP is a component for sure, but more on that, a little bit later. We'll go into that more. Essentially, Gray Zone Warfare is a very much so exotic experience, in my opinion. It has been compared to so many games, and I've even made the mistake of doing this, compared to Tarkov, Arma, Squad, Ghost Recon, and only because these are the games that we know and love, right? These are the games that we play on a day-to-day basis, and from the videos that we have seen in the past, it kind of reminded us of that. To me, though, it takes a very small part of each of these games and hones it into its own take on each almost perfectly. Gray Zone Warfare is a master of its craft. These devs absolutely cooked when they were head down, eyes on the screen, and creating their experience. Gray Zone, by definition, is an extraction shooter. It is so much more, though, in my opinion. There's this sense of exploration that I have not seen in any game that is kind of an extraction shooter type. I've gotten this feeling from an open world kind of RPG, never from a game like this though. There's this incredibly deep ballistic system that works most of the time right now. Again, we played an alpha build, and for us, there were some bugs, and that was to be expected. The build that we played, like I said, it was an alpha. The build all of you guys are going to be playing is going to be early access, or I guess otherwise it would be named a beta. It's going to be a work in progress. So back to the ballistic system. I did some small testing on different ammo and shooting through car doors, wood, concrete. The system's so complex that honestly, it amazes me that it works at all. And when I say it had issues, that was part-time. Very rarely did it happen, but when it did, it was very noticeable, and I'll explain it in a minute. So bullets that are meant to do an incredible amount of damage or trauma to the body, which sometimes is called a large wound cavity or a large wound channel, right? They don't deal incredible amounts of pen. That's kind of the idea behind a round. If you want an incredibly penetrative round, you're probably not going to get a lot of wound cavity because it's going through the item. For instance, I was using an extreme penetrator round for the 9mm Glock. The round would go through a car door and then literally out the other side of the car into the building near it and past the first wall of the building into the next wall. It was an insane thing to see because of the fact when I would switch rounds to the 5.56 FMJ, which is just a full metal jacket, it absolutely didn't do this. It would pen the first car door and it would hit the second with no travel through, or it'll ricochet in a completely different direction. This round would do an incredible amount of damage to the body, however. It's truly amazing to see it in action. It brings me to my first issue, though. The system is so complex that sometimes it flat out doesn't work on the AI. There's several times that I would hit an AI about 12 to 15 times with rounds. Again, they were usually FMJ, and they would just shrug it off like it never hit. The round would hit, and it wouldn't affect them in any way, but it didn't seem to leave a large enough wound channel to damage the heart or, for instance, the brain. That's what they intended the system to do. Other times in my experience, absolutely was most of the time, it would work flawlessly. Most of the time, I want to underline that, most of the time, it worked flawlessly. One taps were happening. Several times I found myself saying, wow, I just one tapped him through the chest by missing his armor just a little bit, and it went through his heart and he dropped. That happened constantly. So the AI issue is there. It's present and it happens, but it is rare, in my experience at least. The dev team is extremely aware of, we call it the AI tanking issue, and they've said they're working on a fix even now. And as such, I think it isn't even worth taking any points away, because it absolutely is a glaring issue, but they're very well known and they are working on it. This team definitely deserves our trust in that. Combat in general in Gray Zone Warfare feels tactical, but not so much so it's a full-on simulator. It mixes the best of both worlds, in my opinion. You aren't running and gunning like in Call of Duty, but at the same time, it isn't as brutal as a game like Squad, for instance, where the recoil is so brutal, you can't even make follow-up shots. Although somewhat realistic when you're running around and you're shooting and you're not supposed to be able to aim perfectly. In my opinion, that would feel too much of a simulator. Gray Zone mixes it perfectly. Combat in general has so many different parts, right? In this game, there's a suppression system where your screen will kind of go blurry, and if enough suppression is done, you even get out of breath, and it makes it so much harder to shoot. It's a really crazy thing to see. There's an awesome healing system too, which includes bleeds, fractures, major damage to organs, blood loss, toxicity from using too many stims, and even an unconscious state, or a coma, as the game likes to call it. If you lose too much blood, you get confused and shaky. If you lose even more, you pass out and you need to be healed, thus the coma state. If you take a round to the heart, however, or lose too much blood and no one heals you, or you take a round to the head, that's it. Game over, you die. Combat is mostly unforgiving, as the AI is not easy, and I don't think it's meant to be, but it feels so good to get in those fights when all of the systems are working as they should. It's an incredibly vicious AI system, in my opinion, because they all work together. It's absolutely one of my favorite parts about this game. Speaking of the AI reacts in so many different ways, albeit slightly inconsistent at times. Some of the reactions include them yelling that you are running away when you're trying to leave the fight. So you're taking rounds, you start to run away, they will scream that, hey, he's running. Faking death when they're bleeding out is crazy. You'll shoot one, you'll know you hit them, you'll hear them bleeding, and then you'll hear him groan, but he didn't actually die. I'm not entirely sure if this is a bug, but it doesn't seem like it because it's so well done. Pushing you when you kill another enemy is another way that they react, and even sometimes they hold cover as a group. The inconsistency does come in the larger fights, however. When several AI are together, sometimes they don't react the way that they should. And since it's an alpha, I'm assuming that is going to be their top priority to fix. It's to be expected, right? This game's not out yet. It's not even in early access yet. More about that in a little bit. So there's normal beginner types of AI, right? There's several different kinds. There's some with basic AKs and basic armor. These are the ones that you find in the beginning town, for instance. There's some more geared, like there's a bunker where you do a task, and these guys have AR-15s. They got M870 shotguns with EOTech sights on them. They have slightly better armor, and they even have helmets on. Then there's some with full-on M4s with full kit. They have nice helmets. They've got nice armor. These guys are in your kind of harder areas. And then within these subtypes, there's bosses in several of the areas. But this is my favorite part. Gray Zone does bosses differently. They're not superhumans. They don't have super reflexes. They're not tanky. They're not crazy. The bosses have what kind of seems like better aim. They definitely have better gear than their counterparts, and they usually have some kind of identifying clothing, like in the beginning town, the red beret, and they look like gold rimmed glasses. Those are like the specific clothing of that boss, for instance. And I love that a head tap can still drop them in one round versus so many other games that the bosses are literally superhuman. The only real issue I ever saw with AI was some glitching in the map as they would kind of bob up and down in some spots. This was in like the mountainous areas though, or they're next to a stream and they kind of get stuck. Again, it's pathing. I truly think that they're going to figure that out. I never really saw AI spawn in front of me though, and more than once I landed near some teammates who had cleared out a town or a village, and as I landed, the AI would stay dead. We would walk away from the town as a group, come back, and they'd still be dead. Only after some time of us being there did the AI at the very other end of the village seem to spawn in. Again, you couldn't see this happen, but they were there. Of course, we would extract back to base, come back later, and they were there and mostly always in a different spot too. It's a really good mix of gamifying it and immersion, in my opinion. Some of the best that I've seen in the genre. PvP. Okay. The big question on everyone's mind. The huge argument between so many. There are big streamers who are having an issue with it. There are big streamers who are loving it. There are people who haven't played the game yet who have this incredible opinion about it because they've watched videos about it. And you know what? It is absolutely opinion based, in my opinion. The biggest issue is the opinions are starting to kind of run together and other people are grasping at straws, in my opinion. So here's my take. Yes, there is PvP. Yes, it is exhilarating. And yes, it is also sometimes very, quote unquote, janky. Everyone has probably heard of the issue with landing and being instantly killed by a player that's camping the landing zone. It happens. It's definitely an issue. The devs are definitely aware of it and are actively trying to find a solution. What is the solution? I don't know. I don't know if there is a solution. How do you stop players from griefing people? How do you stop a human being from getting into a video game and griefing you because they can? I don't think you can. I don't think you fix that. I think you can limit it. Absolutely. I just don't think that there's a perfect solution. Albeit there might be a temporary solution, but in my opinion, it's a temporary issue. If it happens, you instantly, and I mean instantly, spawn back at your base. There's no loading screens, and you grab whatever gear you want and move on. You have the option of either using another landing zone and trying to get to your body and get revenge, which isn't as easy as it sounds, unless you come from a different area, of course. Or skip it altogether, move on to another area and another task, and I guarantee you the person's not going to be there later on. The sense of loss in this game is there, but it isn't as horrible as other games in the genre. Grayzone's secret weapon, in my opinion, to the griefing issues is the seamless, guys, I mean seamless transitions from gameplay to death back to gameplay. I mentioned the insta spawns. If you didn't die and you just extracted back to base, turning in tasks, buying new gear, adding items to your stash, it is all in real time. The game never stops. You never load anything, and there's no trick. The flights to and from base are all real time. You, for instance, a really good kind of explanation of this is you can see firefights happening below you, right? I was in a plane, or rather the helicopter, and I was going over the sawmill. There's two dudes that I knew shooting at AI directly below me, and I could see it the entire time. I even wrote the guy and said, "Hey, did you find Sturman there?" It was just such a awe-inspiring moment in this game. When you open up your map and you see the blue teammates below you, you see them in the game. It's truly amazing. So being camped at the drop zones, saying all of that, it's slightly broken. Yes. And it is a negative. Absolutely. And it's something people should be aware of. But for me, at least, it's a temporary issue. If it happens, just like in other games that you extract and you get extract camped, I don't know if there's a permanent solution. Except in this game, instead of a 10-minute wait, all you have to do is decide what you want to do next because you're already spawned. You're already back at your base. Go get revenge or go to the opposite side of the map. Or instead, if you want to, just walk out of your base. Because yes, you don't need to take the planes. You can just walk out the front door and walk across the entire map. The freedom is mind-blowing for an extraction shooter. I can't stress it enough. The game is a truly open world. Truly open. There are no boundaries other than the outside of the maps. And of course, the mountains that you can't climb because you don't have climbing equipment. Right now, another boundary that I would like to mention is the middle zone. We were not able to get there in the playtest. The radiation, as it's currently called, kind of does some funky things. So there's nothing there right now. I'm assuming because this was the playtest, they didn't want people to be streaming what's in the middle, kind of the end game. I'm so excited to see what they do, especially since it's being compared to Stalker and they're using that idea. I'm really excited for the roadside picnic-esque stuff that we're going to see in there, which adds just another layer onto this incredible cake. Another aspect of the PvP is just naturally running into people when you're out doing like various tasks and stuff in towns. This is so much more organic and it is truly way more fun. The sound design's so good that footsteps, you'll know almost exactly where the enemies are coming from with the right headset on. It's awesome. And again, the ballistic system makes every engagement feel so much more intense. And it doesn't seem to have the bugs that the AI have, where if you shoot them, they're tanky. If you shoot a player and you hit them, it's devastating. Or their armor will catch it, still leaving a nasty bruise and making it, again, harder for them to aim and hit what they want. A bruise can change the entire outcome of a fight. So base raiding is also another thing that you can do. You can walk into an enemy base, kill all the kitted AI guarding it, avoid the minefields, and of course the other players, kill them, go into the base, loot all the bodies, and you'll have enemies instantly spawning with nothing on, and you can continue to kill them. That wasn't as fun to have happen to you, but that happened. The only time that happened to me was prior to the final patch, which added significantly more geared AI to protect the base. And they have already said that they have this big surprise in store for the actual early access period, which will make it, again, even harder to raid bases. Raiding bases doesn't net you anything other than the gear on the players and the AI. There's no like random loot inside the base that I could tell. But aside from that, the PvP is great. You know, it's got some flaws, and with the right fixes, I think it's going to be absolutely top tier and add to the incredible base layer that this game already has. PvE for me is the best part of the games. So my review might be different from somebody that wants PvP or wants this game to be something that it isn't. You know, the last part that I want to touch on, though, is insanely important to me, and that is graphics. I am a graphics connoisseur, some would say. I run a 4090 with a Ryzen 9 7950X 3D. I've got an LG OLED as my monitor, 120 frames. And I was maintaining 4K 90 with DLSS on with frame gen. DLSS itself wasn't on. And again, I was getting 90 frames with full DLSS on in quality mode with frame gen. I was getting easily 170 frames. But my monitor can only do 120, so I was getting screen tearing. So if I lock it at 120 with quality mode on, it's solid. Without it, I'm getting 90, but it's a solid 90. Graphics are the most important aspect of a game for me. It's always been that way. I've always said that. And when I say this game has the most beautiful graphics that I have ever played in a video game, I don't know if it's just because of the Unreal 5 or the incredible work that these guys did, but it's not even just fidelity. The world building is perfect. The jungle comes alive with the shimmering leaves, sunlight glowing through them, and the way everything comes together with the sound, although sometimes the sound can be overbearing, You feel like you're in a jungle. You feel like you're in this untamed wilderness. And then you have these little towns scattered throughout the wilderness in the jungle. It just feels like a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece of graphical detail. And I haven't seen graphical detail like this since Red Dead Redemption 2. And if anybody knows me, that is my favorite game of all time because the graphics were perfect. The detail was perfect. This game nails the graphics. Absolutely nails it. As far as the buildings go and the textures, they are just as incredible. The weapon models are absolutely top tier with small scratches and tiny little details that if you're a gun nut, you are going to instantly recognize and say that is perfect. I wish the guns would deteriorate as you use them, maybe get dirty or muddy. That'd kind of be the cherry on top, honestly. Either way, the game pulls together a symphony for the eyes, and I cannot look away anytime I'm playing. YouTube and Twitch kind of compresses it too much, and it does not do it justice. Some of my favorite moments were flying to a drop zone on the helicopter and see the water just shimmering below. It was insane. I touched on sound design, but to expand slightly, gun sounds are slightly underwhelming. Silencers sound phenomenal. That pop that they give, it sounds really, really good. It's the loud rifles that all kind of sound, I don't want to use like the word samey, but they're very similar. And I believe it's an easy fix that they can work on. And I do believe that they will. That's what Gray Zone Warfare is, though. An absolute masterpiece of a base with some very small defects that can and I believe will be fixed. The last part that I want to touch on is the dev team. No review really talks about the devs. Honestly, it's a tragedy to leave out Madfinger Games. They are always listening. Throughout my 30 hours, the team constantly was in contact through Twitter updates, Discord updates, and any other platform they had. They would stop into people's stream. They would constantly ask if there's any issues. They wanted feedback throughout the entire process. And unlike most devs, Madfinger Games, every step of the way, screamed that they cared. Every action that they took. It's their passion project, and you can clearly tell that it is. They're caring for it like it's their baby, and I've never seen that with another dev, other than maybe long ago when the makers of Zelda and like games like this that were truly passion projects came to life. That's what I'm feeling with Gray Zone Warfare and Madfinger Games. As far as the game as a whole, it gives me hope. Truly, it gives me hope for the future of gaming. Gray Zone Warfare from Madfinger Games was the wildest ride I've ever taken in an extraction shooter genre. It has some hiccups, but along the way, I had the best time I think that I've ever had. It's all thanks to the systems in this game coming together. The graphics, the AI, the gunplay, the ballistics, the questing, the traders, and the PvP. All of those systems are working as intended. It is absolutely something to behold. And it's why Gray Zone Warfare is my most anticipated game of this decade. In my honest opinion, the game's ready to launch. It is ready to be in players' hands with the majority of players. There will be some outliers. There will be people causing drama. But I'm telling you, I have played far worse games that are in full release, charging $80 plus $40 for an add-on. It's basically like getting a car without the wheels. Gray Zone Warfare is giving you the car and the shine on top. The one note I do have, really, it's just an ask. Anybody listening to this video, at any time, if you're considering Gray Zone Warfare, it's going to be releasing in early access. We have all played an early access game. It is not feature nor content complete yet. What we get is the base game. The base of this game is incredibly solid. I appreciate every single person on the dev team, and a special thanks to Rick from Gray Zone Marketing for the chance to test it out. Gray Zone Warfare, the game where, again, hashtag every move matters. Guys, thank you so much. This is my review of Gray Zone. I've never done a review before. I even wrote a script. Most of you know me. I don't usually do that. That's what this game brought out in me. It's more than just a game, it's an experience. And not one time during the entire playthrough did I think to myself, wow, this is killing me. Or, wow, this needs so much work, it's not even close to ready. Never did that happen. And I can't wait for all of you to get your hands on it. And I don't think you're going to have to wait too long. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, please hit that little subscribe button, hit that like button. And as always, I will see you on the next one. Take care.